guys, welcome back to my channel. So today I'm doing my March wrap-up. I'm going to be reviewing all of the 12 books that I read in the month of March. It was a rough month. I had all different genres, like extreme horror, horrors. I had thriller, I had some lit fic, random fiction, it kind of all over the place. But it was a rough month. I had a lot of books that I didn't like. I had a lot of books that I just felt were like middle of the road. So we're gonna get into those in a second, and then how I do my wrap-ups. If you're new here, I start with the books that I like the least and then end on the books that I like the most. So I start with rants and then end on raves. But before we get started, I did have a bunch of books that I DNF'd. I don't know what it was in the month of March. I think I DNF'd like 7 books that I just could not get into. Dead Girl Blues by David Sodergren, Night Bitch by Rachel Yoder, is that her last name? Convenience Store Woman. Like, there were just so many books that I just could not fully get into and I just gave up on, rather than like torturing myself. Like, if I know halfway through a book, or even like sometimes 20-30% into a book, like if I know that I'm just not connecting to it, I know I'm just gonna finish it and not give it a good rating. So it's like, I don't even wanna waste my time anymore. And speaking of not wasting my time, I want to thank listening.com for partnering with me on today's video. Listening.com is an app that turns academic papers, textbooks, PDFs, emails into audiobooks. So by using listening.com, you are freeing up so much time, and I wish that this was a thing when I was in college, because I went to community college and the commute and back every day, I was sitting in my car for at least 2 hours a day. So that's 2 hours that I could have had an audiobook playing in the car, listening to my papers, listening to my textbooks, whatever, and like actually going through my study materials and not worrying about it when I came home. So this frees up so much time. It's so convenient. And not only that, but if you're someone like, I can't pay attention to like textbooks and PDFs and stuff anymore. So if you learn better by listening to a lecture or whatever, this is perfect for you. This app really stands out because it's made for academics. You can hit, there's a notes section, like a plus notes, add notes button. You can hit that and add notes in there. It even will do math equations. It pronounces really difficult technical terms for you. So sometimes you can listen to it and you're like, oh wait, that's how you pronounce that word, which would be helpful for me because I don't ever pronounce words correctly if you've been here a while. It also skips citations and footnotes, and you can upload the PDFs directly from your phone or the website URL, so it's super easy to use. And another thing that I love is it has such a wide arrangement of voices. So, and they don't sound super robotic, like they're actually very easy to listen to. They sound similar to real people. They have male and female voices, so you can pick which voice you want to listen to, which I love, because if something sounds like a robot, I'm probably not going to use it, but these sound super realistic and were actually really easy for me to listen to. So I will have a link in the description box down below if you want to check out listening.com. You can get 3 weeks for free using my link, so make sure you check that out, and thank you so much, Listening, for partnering with me on today's video. Okay, so let's get started with the book reviews. I had a couple of 2-star books. I feel like I was being a little bit generous. Like, some of these should have been 1 star. I think my least favorite book was A Man Called Uva, I think it's pronounced, by Frederick Bachman. I hated this book. I don't understand the hype with Frederick Bachman. Listen, everyone is obsessed with his books, and I don't understand. I don't get it. This is just like a fiction book where there's this guy. I thought it was gonna be an old man. Turns out he's only 59 years old, but he's miserable. He's like, I don't know, just down on his luck, miserable ever since his wife passed away. And then you're kind of learning about him and his life, and then some of the neighbors that move in next door and how they all kind of cross paths. And then you're getting some past chapters about his life and how he met his wife. And how he ended up just being such a miserable man. And that's it. That's this book. I did enjoy some of the past chapters about him like meeting his wife, and some of it was like really emotional. But then the present day chapters with the neighbors were just like insufferable. These people were rude. They were like all in this man's business. I don't know. I did not like these present day chapters. They drove me absolutely insane. So I could not get into this one. And I know a lot of people really connected with this one and said it was emotional for them, and I understand that, but like, this was just not it. I could not wait for this book to end. I hated Anxious People by him. So this is another one that like, I couldn't get into this. I don't understand the hype. The next 2-star book was a thriller, The End of Her by Sherry LaPena. I typically like her books just for like super quick, easy thrillers that just like entertain me and they're done, you know? But this book, this one just did not do it for me. It is my least favorite book of hers. So we're basically following this man, Patrick. He's married, has kids, and we find out he like goes to work one day and he sees this woman, Erica, from his past. She's back. And we're kind of figuring out who this woman is and why she showed back up. And she's basically accusing Patrick of murdering his first wife. So now she is trying to collect all this evidence that he murdered his ex-wife, and he's trying to prove himself innocent. And, you know, we're also following these like other couples. And it's just like a domestic neighborhood gossip drama type thriller. And I really liked the first like 100 pages of it. It was just like easy. It was drama. And then it took this weird turn into like boring courtroom territory. And then the ending was like part of the ending was extremely predictable. And then the other part was just like, where the character acts so out of character just to like throw in a shocking twist. And I'm like, but that was not true to who this person was the entire book. So why now all of a sudden is it like you're just throwing something in there to make it work? You know what I mean? To make it shocking, to make the plot work, whatever. I did not like this one. Highly do not recommend this book. The End of Her, more like the end of me reading thrillers, because I can't do it anymore. I don't know what it is. It's very rare that I find a thriller that works for me anymore. I just don't think I'm a thriller girly anymore, and that's okay. Listen, it's okay to grow and evolve and read different things and branch out, okay? This drove me absolutely insane. Next was Eric LaRocca's new book, The Skin Was Once Mine. I had an arc of this, and unfortunately, this is another Eric LaRocca that just did not work for me. I respect Eric so much as an author. I think they are just extremely talented. Extremely. I don't know. I always am just like mind blown by how talented Eric is, but at the same time I recognize that their books are just not for me. I am just not one of these like intellectual, analytical readers. Like, I don't want to read a book where I have to like pick out the metaphors and symbolism of like what things mean. That's just not me. Like, that's never going to be me. And that's most of their books. This is another short story collection. I think there's 4 short stories. These stories mostly have to do with like grief and loss and childhood trauma, etc. I thought that this was going to be really up my alley, but I just ended up being bored because I didn't really understand what was going on half the time. And like, that's just me. I know a lot of people read this book and absolutely loved it and like say that it's their favorite Eric LaRocca. So I mean, to each their own. I don't want to persuade anyone not to read this book because, like I said, it's just a me thing because I do appreciate this author, but yeah, like if you're like me and you just want to read for vibes, you know, I'd maybe stay away from this one. But if you're someone that's liked Eric's other books, I would definitely check this one out. I'm using my hands a lot today. It's an Italian thing that I do. I kind of changed some of these ratings from the time of my vlogs. So sometimes I'll like bump things up or down by like half a star, but my first 3-star book, this might be my only 3-star book because I had a lot of 3.5s, but this is My Vice is Your Unfathomable Agony by Otis Bateman. This is an extreme horror book. It's like a mob mafia sort of book where these guys get on the wrong side of the boss man in the mob. So basically, you know, this guy is driving a truck one day and he's delivering these, I think it was DVD players, and he gets murdered. And turns out his uncle, he was doing a job for his uncle who is the head of the mob. So when he tracks down these guys who did this, they just basically get tortured the entire book. It's very torture heavy. Like chapter after chapter is like a different person being tortured. And I did think it was a little bit much. I mean, if you're looking for mob, mafia, gore, violence, I would still recommend this book. Like if that's just what you're looking for, gore, because it was extremely creative and well written in the gore category. But for me, like in order for that to be effective, I need to care about the characters, and I just didn't think there was enough character development in there of the people being tortured for me to actually like care about what was going on to them. But if I like actually care about the character and then, or like learn about them and then that's happening, it's more high stakes for me. I'm very desensitized to gore and violence in my books, so that's kind of the stage that I'm at. But if you think that this sounds up your alley, if you want to read like an extreme horror version of Goodfellas or Casino, I would recommend this one. Then I had some 3.5s. Chocolate Man by Jonathan Butcher. This is an extreme horror book about poop. It's a splatterpunk book about poop. So we are following this guy and his family, and this man is afraid to poop. Okay, this is ridiculous. And we find out why, because 22 years ago, we get some flashback chapters. 22 years ago, there was this like poop monster demon guy. You find out what he is, named Kreb, and what happens with our main character leads him to have this, I forget what they call like the scientific term, but he is afraid of pooping. And now he has a family, and like they're all impacted by this man's like mental issues. And so we're learning about this family. It gives really strong character development, and you just really learn about this family and all of their mental illnesses. And then something starts going on with the family that all signs point to Kreb being back. So it dives into really crazy, weird, bizarre splatterpunk territory for the second half. Loved the first half. It was like 5 stars for me. I love Jonathan Butcher's writing. He really is one of my favorite extreme horror authors. But the second half, I did find it was a full-length book, so it was over 300 pages, and I did find the second half a little bit repetitive because it was so crazy, off-the-wall, bizarre. So I did find some of it to be a little bit repetitive, which is why I gave it 3.5. But I would still recommend this one if you're just looking for a disgusting, weird splatterpunk book, but it's extremely well written, and I actually cared about this family. So that's what I mean. I just love those well-developed character-driven reads, I guess. I'm a character girl. And I think I have another 3.5 here, Milk Fed by Melissa Broder. I love Melissa Broder. This is literary fiction. If you've been here this year at all, you know I can't shut up about Melissa Broder. This is my least favorite Melissa Broder that I've read, but I still liked it. So we are following this Jewish woman who she has very disordered eating patterns, okay? And she basically is raised by her, well, she's in her early 20s now, but she was raised by her mom, who is extremely abusive and manipulative and forced her to have disordered eating. And you know, she's so obsessed with counting calories until one day at her favorite frozen yogurt place, she comes across a new employee, this woman who was constantly giving her more calories than she would like to consume, which leads into binge eating. And so we're just really following this her with her eating disorder. And this woman at the frozen yogurt place is Orthodox Jewish, so you learn a lot about Orthodox Jewish culture and eating disorders, and our main character might have like a little bit of a crush on this woman. We don't know. So we're following her just like trying to figure out her own life, her sexuality, her eating patterns. Like, you're just following her along her life journey dealing with mental illness. That's the best way that I can describe this book. I don't know. It's very weird. It's very bizarre. It's wacky. It's just typical weird Melissa Broder fashion. I don't know. I enjoyed this one. I accepted it for what it was. Wasn't my favorite Melissa Broder. Like, I wasn't completely obsessed with it like I was with her other books, but I would still recommend this one if you're looking for just like a character-driven read with something to say, and like I said, exploration of eating disorders, religion, and sexuality. Okay, this next book, I wasn't sure how to rate it because I read it when I was a kid and I absolutely loved it. But then like reading it again as a 30-year-old adult, I wasn't so sure how I felt, but I still gave it like 3.54 stars. It's The Perks of Being a Wallflower by Stephen Chbosky. So this book, I reread it because I found it for free at like my apartment complex, like had books that they were giving away for free. So I took this one because I was like, oh, I loved this one as a kid. So we're following this kid, Charlie. He's a teenager and you're following him kind of, it's like written diary entries set up. Like he's writing to an unnamed, ungendered person. And so it starts out by, you know, dear friend with the date, and then it ends with love always Charlie. So each chapter starts and ends like that. And he's just telling you about his life and about, you know, it's just like a YA coming of age story, you know, about all the like abuse and death and grief and just, you know, his mental illness. And I think I read somewhere online that I think he's supposed to have PTSD. But then there's also speculation that he could be borderline as well. And so then I was like, wait a second, like I want to reread this because I want to see how relatable this is to me. And I do kind of see that in some ways with the emotional fluctuations that he goes throughout his life. But I do think it's more of like a PTSD sort of thing from things that happened in his childhood. Regardless, you know, I wasn't super connected to this as an adult, but I can see why I was super connected to it as a kid. So I would still recommend it if you're looking for a character-driven YA coming-of-age story. I still think that this was emotional, and I still did pick out things that really resonated with me. So I would still recommend this one, but like, if you're younger than me, you'll probably like this more. Next, moving into some like solid 4-star books. I think some of these I bumped up from the time that I did my vlogs. The first book being Thigh Gap by Chandler Morrison. This is a book about eating disorders. So we are following this woman, Helen. She is a fashion model, and she has a severe case of body dysmorphia and an eating disorder, and we are just following her kind of day-to-day life, you know, in the Hollywood type scene, and we're just in her head as she is thinking these constant thoughts. Like, there's this constant voice in her head telling her that she's not thin enough, that like, and the way that she views other people, like she constantly thinks that everyone is fat. She's constantly like making these little comments in her head, and it seems like she's just an awful person, but also very mentally ill, and you feel sorry for her. And it's just very deep, dark territory following the subject matter of eating disorders. So if that's like a huge trigger for you, you might want to stay away from this one. I think it was extremely well written, like all Chandler Morrison's books are. And I do think that, you know, like I was saying, she is a very flawed character, and I think he writes flawed characters so well. That's like my favorite thing about his writing, is that all of his characters are so flawed and they're such awful people, but you also feel sorry for them because they feel real and have real emotions. So this book is kind of, it follows very deep, dark territory, but it was just extremely well done, well handled, very accurate and realistic as far as like the thoughts that go on in your head when you are struggling with an eating disorder. There is the typical like Chandler Morrison satire thrown in there that I loved. Didn't completely love the ending. So like at first I wasn't sure like how I felt about this book, but then the more that I think about it, the more that I really enjoyed it, because I just love how I would label this as extreme horror, because it's just deep, unsettling subject matter, but it's not like super gory, crazy, violent or anything like that. I just love that. I love horror that has something to say, you know, and this one is very much that, and I highly recommend if you want to read something with some, I don't know what it was this month, but I'm sidetracked. I don't know what it was this month. I'm like reading eating disorder books, but would totally recommend this one. And then I read The Scampering, which is a little short story collection, not collection, my brain is starting to rot right now. This little short story by Alana Drex and A.W. Mason. So this is extreme horror about squirrels. So we're following this woman who hates squirrels. She's unhinged. She really, really has a thing for squirrels because years ago, her husband died in a car accident involving like swerving to get out of the way of squirrels. And so now she like really hates squirrels, and we're just following her descend into madness over these squirrels. If you have any triggers about animal cruelty, I might stay away from this one, but at the same time, it's kind of like, it was like, I don't want to say anything, I don't want to give it away, but it's like a good for her book, but with animals instead of women. Does that make sense? Like, good for her, good for the animals. I don't know. I don't want to say too much. I just trust me on this one. I think all the proceeds of this one go to, I'm not sure the exact cause, but it goes towards like animal welfare. So definitely check this one out. I really enjoyed it. I really liked their writing, and I can't wait to read more from both of these authors in the future. One more 4-star, it's Holly Madison's book, Down the Rabbit Hole. She's an ex, Playboy playmate, and this is like her tell-all tea-filled book about Hugh Hefner and the mansion, and this was just non-stop drama. Listen, people are giving this, or they were giving this, bad reviews because they said Holly's attitude sucked, and like it did. She was kind of not a nice woman throughout this book. She talked so much trash about literally everyone, didn't take accountability for anything, blamed everything on everyone else and their actions, but like very victim mentality. But I didn't care about that. I read this book because I wanted drama and tea, and that's what this book gave me. It was non-stop drama, tea, trash talking, and I was like, oh wait, you mean Hugh Hefner was actually a terrible man? He was actually a creep? Like, no way, I would have never guessed. But this book gave me exactly what I was looking for. If you want a tea-filled celebrity memoir, I definitely recommend checking this one out. It's all about how awful Hugh Hefner was and how awful the mansion was, and like trash talking all the other girls. It was just wild. I don't know, that's literally why I read this book, and that's what it gave me, so I loved it. Okay, now I had 2 5-star books. My first one was Good Material by Dolly Alderton. This is literary fiction. So in this book, we are following this guy. He is a stand-up comedian. That's my thing. But he is post-breakup, so we're following the man's perspective. After this breakup, he dated this woman for like 4 years. He's in his 30s now, and we're just following him through every single stage after his breakup. And he's very like down and depressed and wondering like what he did wrong. And for the first like 80% of the book, we're following his POV, and then the last like, I don't know, maybe like 10 to 20% of the book, we're following the woman, the ex-girlfriend's POV, and kind of like why she broke up with him. And it was very relatable, raw, emotional. I loved this one because Dolly's writing was fantastic, and the way that she captured such a realistic breakup with a realistic male perspective. And you never really see a lot of books coming from like the male perspective after a breakup, and kind of like what they go through and how they process their emotions a lot of the times. A lot of people are saying this main character was insufferable, and like he just whines and complains the whole book, but like I feel like I'm kind of insufferable, like I'm kind of the same way. So I felt like this was relatable in a sense, and I just felt like, I don't know, it was just real. It was realistic, real people, real life type thing. It wasn't overly fabricated. I loved the ending with the woman's POV and kind of like why she ended things, and it just had a lot of, I don't know, it just made me sit and think about my own life and my own personal issues that I struggle with, and like things that I need to work on. So I really enjoyed this one, and I would highly recommend it. And then my last 5-star book, I need to take a drink. I've been talking way too long. But I have another Chandler Morrison here. It's Hate to Feel. This is, I think, my favorite Chandler Morrison that I've read so far. Along the Path of Torment, I absolutely loved. You guys know that. I rave about that book. And this one, I think I liked a little bit more. So it's more of like an American Psycho-esque love story, but it's, it's extreme horror. And so we're following this guy Derek, and he is a little bit obsessive. He falls in love with this woman at his work and becomes obsessed with her and enters a relationship, and like my tortoise is climbing her log again. My tortoise has been in my office like every time I film, and she just gets really rowdy in there. But where was I? So he gets a little bit obsessive over this woman, and he's not quite right. Oh my god, I just threw up in my mouth. He reminds me a lot of Patrick Bateman. You know, he's just very like angry and cynical, and the way that he views other people, and you're like in his head and he's thinking crazy things about everyone, and he's like, this woman is a fucking disgusting slob, and I'm like, Patrick Bateman, is that you? So we're just following him and like how he's obsessing over this woman, and then he goes through a breakup and he's trying not to feel. Like he feels too many emotions and he's trying not to feel. He wants to become numb, and the only way that he could do that is with extreme violence. The second half of this book just goes like absolutely insane, disgusting, gory, extreme horror. So it was so well written because this felt relatable in a sense, like just like certain things that this main character was thinking about love, about relationships, and about just like the world in general. Like I was kind of going through some stuff when I read this, and parts of it felt like a punch to the gut. I felt like the emotional aspects of this book were spot on. I found this, I don't know, it was cathartic in a way. You know, not that I'm a psycho by any means, but I did find him a little bit relatable. And then when we get into, like, I was borderline about to cry at certain points, and then when we get into the crazy off-the-wall extreme horror, it was like extremely effective, well-written gore, and I cannot say enough good things about this book. Like, please promise me you're going to pick this one up. It's also on Kindle Unlimited. I loved it so much that I bought a physical copy. Please read this book and get back to me on what you think, because this is kind of a hidden gem. Not many people talk about this one. Everyone talks about Dead Inside and Thigh Gap, etc. No one's really talking about this one. And I want to be like, I don't know, I want to start the chain reaction for this book blowing up, because that's how confident I am in this book. I love it so much. I could rave about it. I could scream about it for hours. I need everyone to go read this book. It's so well written. And once again, his ability to write such flawed characters that are terrible people, but feel real, and like you feel bad for them to a certain extent. I don't know, like his writing is so effective. So well done. I love this so much. I'm Chandler Morrison's like, I don't know, I'm like his unofficial hype person, spokesperson. I'm obsessed. I don't know, but I love this book so much. And that is it. Those are the, how many books did I read this month? Those are the 12 books that I read in March. So let me know in the comments down below what book you liked the most in March, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!